mentioned that I read the book of Job and was troubled by it. I am still troubled by it. What's the deal up there? You know, what, too much time on the divine hand? You know, little Job's down there with his little farm, and suddenly we're going to wipe him out to test his faithfulness. No. Don't need that. So I girded a bit with the Lord in a way that, you know, I'm certain John would not. And so in the book, I point out that I'm sorry for being so bold in this way, but quite frankly, the accident challenged me to try and figure some things out. And I had to go back to first principles. Why did he make us? Why did he make me if he was going to throw me into a ravine on my mother's birthday after a 4-second slide? And what are you thinking up there? And John and Mary, these embodiments of love itself. So, you know, I pondered, we all know the first answer to why did God make us. He made us to know, love, and serve Him in this world and the next. It was drilled in my head, and maybe it'll mean something. I keep saying to myself. But it does, and it has disclosed this to me. I know you don't need my compliments, and this is me speaking to the Lord now. And I also believe I would simply disappear if you forgot about me for even a single second. You know, last week I was in Malta, just for reunion week. They wanted to do something like this. You know, John is as popular in Malta now as he is in Malta. There are priests saying in Maltese, "Lift up your heart!" all across the country. And they threw a little soiree for John and Mary. I got to tag along last week. The president of the country came. Well, where's Obama? You know, the archbishop was there. The rector of the university. That's a small country to be sure. There's only 6 of us in a phone booth, but it was a remarkable thing. And you know, in the course of my travels last week, I also testified in front of their Constitutional Reform Commission, and I said, you need a preamble. You know, no constitution is worth its salt without a preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to... And I said, you know, your faith is so profound and so great, you ought to do for the Holy Father what he's accomplishing, seeking to accomplish across all of Europe, and that's to remind all of us that we disappear without our Creator. And so why not just begin your Constitution respectful of the abundant blessings of the Creator of the universe? Well, never has something more controversial been stated, apparently, you know, and they're twirling in their seats right now, debating that proposition. I hope to go back in about 50 years just to when they slow down. But back to my own mysteries with God, trying to figure them out. And I said, nonetheless, I do hope that I am getting this correct. You, God, even in your almightiness, need us. Therein is disclosed the rationale for giving us life and all that populates it. You were alone. Being alone is no fun. Indeed, the alienation of being alone, I suspect, is very much what hell amounts to. It is the antithesis of love, which requires in any meaningful sense another person. So I have always concluded, dear Lord, that you made us out of the desire to manifest your love toward another. Now I know you have your own little Trinitarian community with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, but we don't call the Trinity a mystery for nothing. Anyway, if you'll pardon the irreverence, I just can't see Jesus or the Spirit in a bowling shirt, or even exhausting the kind of conversational needs I imagine the mind of God enjoys, though admittedly us little brains, as Rip Torn calls us in the movie Defending Your Life, grasp very little of the vast scope of your mind, which was the point made so well by Father as well. If love is your central motivation for those 6 days of hard work in Genesis, and if again we are made in your image, it was rational for you to suppose that your demonstration of love for us would be reciprocated. Of course, we know what happened. We let him down. We promptly messed up rather badly. And so if evil is in the world, and it is, if evil is in the world, and it is, we don't need to look too much farther than ourselves. And, you know, can God best Satan? You know, I always worry about that passage where God is up on the mountaintop with the devil. And the devil just says, bow down, Lord, and worship me, and all of these and all of this will be yours. How smug that is, right? Because he's talking about us. He's saying he can deliver us. I can deliver all mankind to you, Lord. It's our obligation to prove him wrong. It's our obligation to lift up our hearts in a way that forms this community ever more strongly, to prove that old Beelzebub wrong, to prove that he, in fact, will not wander through the world gaining the ruin of souls, even if he may be seeking it. You know, so many things happened in the last several years that I tried to capture in the book, and one is captured again here among us tonight, and that is that Martin Sheen brought the way to that tiny island, going out of his way greatly to do so, but never making it difficult at all. And let me just read a passage. One of the things he most wanted to do when he came, of course, Malta is a place in the middle of a storm now. The Arab Spring is beneath it, if it is a spring. We don't know if it's a spring or a dark winter. That too will require our help. But one of the things we know about what's happening there is that thousands of people, Eritreans, Somalians, Nigerians, are migrating, looking for a way of escape from the violence. And it wouldn't surprise you that the first people Martin wanted to see in Malta was not ambassadors and prime ministers and heads of state. He wanted to go to the Kalfar, to the detention center. Martin Sheen, whose West Wing acting is well known throughout Europe, very thoughtfully visited us with his grandson Taylor to premiere the highly acclaimed movie The Way. By the way, it was the first premiere in Malta, since that silent film in The Artist, and the real one. And he did it totally as a fundraiser for a priest that John would have loved, a little Franciscan priest named Father Mintoff. Up in his 80s, a youngster as far as John would be concerned. It is a thoughtful film set along the way of St. James in Spain, and the message of the film, like Martin's entire career, helps us appreciate the things that really matter. The Maltese were enamored with the film's genuine and heartfelt religious theme, and with the spirituality of Martin, who generously lingered with anyone who sought him out. A significant sum came to Father Mintoff by reason of Martin's talent and his son Emilio, who acted and directed the project. The money came just in the nick of time to assist the influx of migrants coming because of the outbreak of violence. You can see these pictures in the book, and I hope you will enjoy them. They are fond memories for me. We would have each of the migrant families over to our home before they departed to the place of resettlement in the United States. They didn't have a clue what the ambassador was saying, just like you this evening. They had the excuse, or I had the excuse, that there were several different African dialects being spoken that night. But I would always tell them two things. One was, don't forget your culture when you come to us, because it's an enormous gift. It's an enormous gift to us to open our eyes to the rest of the world, to see how blessed, how truly blessed we are. And then I would admit that most of them wanted to be Americans very quickly. And I only knew one way in which to make them Americans, and it was to give them this very important warning, this very important caution. I said they would no sooner get off the plane if they weren't prepared, and some fan of the very expensive New York Yankees would want them to come their way, or some fan of the movable Dodgers would want to come their way. But